ways to approach your season. I think you want to look at it as a whole and say what went right, what went wrong. Everyone has things that went right, and everyone has things that went wrong. Even Alaphilippe, it was probably private. He didn't maybe talk about it, but he obviously did a lot of right, and I guarantee you he probably had some challenges that he overcame along the way. So the biggest thing I think you want to look at is for you guys out there in podcast land is, did you train enough, and could you have trained more? And we'll get into that with this is my performance manager chart, and I'll allude to that. Because again, when you get done with these long, hard, any race, whether it's Masters, Nationals, or the state championships, it's what could you have done better? Train more, way less. Yeah. And we'll talk about that.
And train smarter.
Train smarter, yes. Yeah, efficiency.
Yeah.
Did you do too much base and not enough intervals? Did you do too many intervals and you didn't have a good base? Did you do too many 2x20s when you should have been doing 30-second anaerobic output specific to the races that you were doing? You can be when you look at TrainingPeaks, you can even do this in Strava. Strava will tell you there's the really nice summary, like how many miles you've ridden, how many feet you've climbed, how much time you've been riding. I mean, look at that for 2019 compared to 2017. Is it more or less? 2019. And, did you train more in 2019 than you did in 2018? If you did, I bet you had a better season. If you did not, I bet you didn't have as good of a season. And if you want to do better in 2020, then you probably want to ride more. As a whole, I think the more you train, probably the better you'll perform, to a certain limit that only the professionals get up to. For most Masters athletes, I know that generally the more that you can carve out of training time, probably the more you can improve.
Right, because I think the pro guys, they have a massive volume. I mean, they do so. I mean, obviously it's their job, so they have time, but they're doing huge amount of riding, just miles, and then they get their race intensity or their intensity from racing. And so, there's a reason why they're doing that. There's a reason why they're putting in a lot of miles. Building that aerobic base is critical.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like, look back at your, how much time you were able to train November through March. And was it a lot? Did you do great? Did you do really nice and consistent? Or did you pick up your training in April and have you were really good from April on, but then maybe that means you just can be better if you get started earlier.
Yeah.
So Strava can summarize it really well. TrainingPeaks can summarize it even better in just quantifying your total hours. The performance manager chart, which for the video watchers that we have here, we can just get into that. This chart epitomizes a picture is worth 10,000 words, and this graph is worth 10,000 words. And I can break it down for you guys, but for the video listeners that are following along, this is December 1st, 2018. That's essentially when I was lifting weights. And then this is all the way, this is Steamboat Gravel. This is my last race of the season. And you can tell I really haven't been doing much since then. And let me walk you through the big life events. But I'm going to scroll forward to, oh no, go to the right. Okay, yeah, here we are. All right, this is a graph is worth 10,000 words. And if you look over here on the far left, and this is December. Over here, lifting weights. I'm going to the gym. It's winter time. I'm not riding that much intentionally. Doing the hypertrophy phase over here. You're not trying to, ride too much. Again, this is right before Christmas, and then this is went to visit family from Christmas through New Year's, so your training declines a little bit, and then you come back first of the new year, and
You're all motivated. Amped.
And so you do a bunch of good training, and I keep doing good training. And then if you remember I don't know what podcast that was when we talked about the do-it-yourself personal training camp. This is my Mill Valley, California training camp, that bolus dose of training with Dr. Nathan and the Oklahoma boys.
That brought your CTL up nicely.
Yeah, CTL came up to about almost 70 there. And then I came back to Boulder, and we had a crappy winter.
Terrible.
And as you see, my CTL actually went down. One of the things that limited me that I'll mention, we were selling my house, and what would happen on a typical Saturday, the realtor would call, say you got a showing today, and then we'd have to clean it up, get all the pets out, and that puts a dampen on your 3 and 4 hour ride that day. So I was struggling to get in some good training volume. And the master plan was sell the house as soon as possible and be done with it. And it just dragged on. And we'll get into that because it affected me all the way up until July. Nevertheless, I stayed consistent, and I didn't, give up or anything, but it did inhibit the build. But then I went on spring break, and you can see, got all the way up to 80. That was awesome. Came back, took some rest. I did, I think the Boulder Roubaix was actually here. I put here actually, I did a bike race here the first weekend in April. Had a bad crash.
Broke your bike.
Broke the bike. So that's a week off.
Yeah.
Not only did I need to take it to heal up, but it took me a while to get the bike built back up. So that, that decreases the old CTL. Almost like I erased about half of what I did on spring break. That was a bummer. But anyway, the weather was still pretty choppy in April. And I was doing some big weekends, and I would have to recover on the weekend. And then remember we did the Oat Root Asheville that we podcasted about, and was like my short range goal, and that's kind of what kept me motivated to ride in the slush and the snow in April. And then this is a good example. You see your CTL go up from the Oat Root Asheville, and that's a good example of like stage race CTL. You go do a 3-day stage race with a bunch of 300 TSS stages, and it does really good for your CTL. Came back. The house is still not sold yet. We're doing showings. It's a pain in the butt. We finally go under contract here in June, but the place that I was buying was not ready yet.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean, life stuff.
Happens to the best of us.
The original plan when we hatched the idea way back in January is we move in April 30th. And that was like going to be perfect for the Oat Root Asheville. Move in, do the Oat Root Asheville, come back, train your brains off for the Crusher and Steamboat. What happened here is I had to move out of my house. I didn't have anywhere to live. And while we're waiting for the new place to be ready, we're literally in a van down by the river, and there was, the pets were the hardest part to, to find a place for them to live. So that's why you see the CTL go down. In about second week of June, I realized the Crusher just wasn't going to be possible. And I'm sorry I'm giving you all my life story, but these are things that you think about.
It's good to reflect back on.
When you review, it's like, if you want to do better, don't sell your house, don't crash. If you look back at this winter hard training time, I need to develop a better man cave and have a contingency plan of what to do in the event that you're inside. And of course, I won't be showing my house, so I'm looking forward to that. And then after everything settled down with all the life stuff, July the 1st, I pulled the trigger on the Steamboat Gravel plan. And, then this was like awesome.
Yeah.
This is really good,
We had great weather.
Great. It's summertime. Yeah, riding in the morning. And you can see I got my CTL all the way up to 90. This was the Steamboat Gravel Recon ride I did with Ken and Mark and that we podcasted about. And then after that, I was doing some interval work. So everything from July 1st went according to plan. And so when I look at my performance manager chart before July 1st, there's a lot I can improve upon. And so, yeah, but the biggest thing is no crash, and spring break was awesome. Mill Valley was awesome. Oat Root was awesome. So, you when you think about 2020, you want to keep what worked and discard what didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have a similar life story. You can, yeah.
I won't bore you guys too much.
So use your performance manager chart and select the whole year view and go back and just walk through it, And I'm sure everyone's got a story of this and that because it's life. And, even the pro guys have this stuff.
And maybe, you did a couple races that you feel like you don't want to do again, or that you are like, okay, I'm going to target that for like next year, make that my target thing. Like, I did Steamboat Gravel and like I signed up on a whim because it was first year, but like had a great time. I mean, this is like kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, I kind of want to go back to Crusher next year, but I think like Steamboat Gravel, it's like cool because now we know the course, we've done it. Now it's a good event to like have as your main target to kind of build up to and have that be the main focus. And maybe I won't do Rebecca's, or I don't know, like it's good to look at the races too, to sort of like, again, I mean, that's a huge way to plan your season.
I think what you're talking about or alluding to is you want to choose events that suit your strengths. And so like if you're not a climber, probably don't make the Crusher your A race because it's a climber's race. If you're known to not be good at altitude, if you've raced at altitude before and you could really feel the lack of oxygen, then you may not want to choose an event at altitude. Like Masters Nationals was at altitude this year in Colorado Springs, and I know the Colorado guys and gals did really well because it's our hometown race. We're acclimated, but the people that came in from sea level, they didn't do so hot. And so, factor that in when you're choosing your event. Hopefully Masters Nationals not at altitude next year.
Yeah.
But you never know. And I think also, to like your point, it's like what race did you do the best at? When were you the most on form? You can go back through this and then you can start looking at like your training stress balance and when were you on form. Like I felt like I was going pretty good in April, everything was going good until that crash. And so I was, everything was, even though I'd had a crappy winter and everything, I was still pretty pumped up. But then I think everyone, maybe you got sick. That's what happens a lot. People get sick, like the flu, and it's a week off, and it seems like you're just kind of crawling back out of it for a period of time. So you want to look at that. Sometimes people get knee problems, like overuse injuries. Right. Andy Pruitt calls it spring knee. Everyone, the weather gets better in March and April, and they start riding more, and they crop up with that overuse injury. Did that happen? If so, go get a bike fit. Go dial that in. I consider bike fits preventative medicine. And the other thing is don't change much equipment once the season begins. And right now that we're in September, October, this is where you change equipment. If you have an injury and it needs, you need a procedure done, now's the time to get it. Don't wait until next March when taking a week off will have a much greater impact.
Maybe go see a PT or something, get your stuff sorted out so that you can start working on that, so that you're not waiting until the season starts and you're still dealing with it.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about bike fit, races, data driven. I mean, we just went through like was your FTP higher in the spring than it was in the summer? Take a look at what was going on there. Most guys and gals, their FTP tends to go up, and it follows along with their just riding more. And but some people come out of the winter super hot, really on form, and then they may just do a slow fade as the summer goes on. You might want to take a look at what was happening there. The biggest thing is, like, did you accomplish your goals? Did you miss your goals? Did you miss your goal, but you were still encouraged by the progress you made? All good questions to ask.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes too, like, especially for those of us doing the gravel stuff, to, it's just gotten so competitive now that sometimes goals might not be, like, you might also want to, like, reassess your goals. Like, if you're like, oh, I want a podium at the Crusher or a podium at Steamboat Gravel, but then you get there and you're like, who are all these people that are just so fast? Like, it's,
yeah.
But did you feel good? Did you feel like you were in the mix? Like, were you happy with your performance separate from the result? Because a lot of times, the ebb and flow of cycling, different people come in and out of the woodwork, and it can be hard to, like, if you're just focusing so much on results, then it's hard to, like, decide if you actually met your goal, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where power data is so beneficial, because you can look at your personal improvement independent of the competition, which you don't have any control over. And then, Strava PRs are not bad.
Right.
I have an athlete right now. He is PRing on all his climbs, but he's having power meter drama, and it's just completely wackadoo. But at the bottom line, he's climbing faster than he ever has before, and that's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah.
So you could take a look at that. And then, I know the point I was going to make. I have an athlete. He is doing the Pisgah Monster Cross 2 days from now. For all of those of you who don't know, it's a killer gravel race in Brevard, North Carolina, or at least in the western North Carolina mountains. And it's in the woods, and it's a hard race. They're going to do a ton of climbing. And he's done it before. His goal this year is to just finish, because last year he did not. And then the other goal that we just talked about yesterday was, this is going to be a big accomplishment for him to finish. And it's like, don't let what's happening with the other people in the competition. Really, you're kind of racing the course.
Yeah.
That's what happens in these gravel races. You're really racing the terrain and yourself. And there's people all around you and everything, but once you get 6 hours in, everyone's in the same boat, and it kind of becomes just you against almost like yourself in the terrain. So his goal is to kind of like let the fact that who's beaten him or who he's beaten go and just have a good personal race.
Right.
So I think that's a good goal. And then, so now that you've dove into your data, you've figured out you didn't train enough, and this time, that time, you went through your PMC, you identified all that, now this gets to the second part of the power to weight ratio, winning in the kitchen, and how much you weighed. Because, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, what can you do better? Train more, weigh less.
Yeah.
And train more means, when I say that, I mean make more power, make more race-specific power. Like
not just riding.
Right. Yeah, more power.
Yeah.
Like when I got done with the O-Route Asheville, it was easy. I need to train more and weigh less. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of, for us in Colorado, that was coming off of the winter.
Yeah.
And speaking of choosing races, and this goes back to the podcast we did last October of choosing races for the next year. You want to choose races that fit in with your seasons.
Yeah.
We're, here in Colorado, a lot of people don't be choosing the Valley of the Sun February for your A race, because that means you need to be riding in the freezing cold and rain all through the holidays. And that's tough living in Colorado. But if you live in California or Arizona, that's a pretty good goal.
Yeah.